Does Nick Bosa need to pick it up? His one sack this year, and it was on a play when he wasn't blocked. Literally, they just didn't block him, and he got a sack. Other than that, no sacks. That's one sack, 4 games, on pace for 4.25 sacks this year. 4.5. Let's round up to be generous. Does he need to pick it up?
I don't think he does. I mean, everybody looks at sack numbers, and I understand they're super important when a guy's getting paid all this money. But I think if we look across the way at a team that the 49ers are getting ready to play, and they look at Parsons, you would look at his season at 4 sacks and automatically assume, oh my gosh, like he's having another great season, which he is. But when you look at the numbers, Grant, they're almost even across the board. So Bosa has 135 pass rush snaps this year. Parsons has 113. Okay, so Bosa does have more pass rush snaps. Bosa has 2 more pressures than Parsons. He has 2 more hurries than Parsons. He has 2 more QB hits than Parsons, and he has 3 less sacks. When you total everything together, his output from a percentage standpoint of his snaps is at around 22% of his snaps. He's making headway towards the quarterback, and Parsons is at 23. But the difference is Parsons is double teamed about 4% less of the time. So really, when you look at it, if you think Bosa needs to step it up, then I would say that Parsons needs to step it up as well. And maybe they both do. But I think Bosa, for not being in shape to put up basically Parson numbers outside of the sacks, I mean, does he really need to step it up that much? Sometimes you can't control if you get the sack or not. Sometimes your pressure was a cleanup sack, or maybe sometimes these teams throw a bunch of underneath routes, bunch of quick timing routes, and can take you away. And maybe that's why you shouldn't pay these guys big money. That's a whole different topic. But I think Bosa's playing pretty damn good football.
I agree. I think Bosa's playing great football, and I don't think he needs to pick it up. I think Steve Wilks needs to pick it up. If I were the Niners defensive coordinator and Nick Bosa had 1 sack in 4 games under my watch, and that 1 sack came on a play when he wasn't blocked, I'd have to say to myself, what can I do to make Nick Bosa's job easier? Clearly, he's a great player. Clearly, he hasn't regressed. What am I not doing to free him up? Because I'm a good defensive coordinator. I have ideas. What isn't working? What can I do to get him some better looks? And when I watched the film today, I'm going to do a whole film breakdown tomorrow with the coach on my channel around 10 a.m. Pacific time. When I was watching the film, I'm not a former player, former coach, but I'm noticing that Steve Wilks doesn't do a whole lot with Nick Bosa. He generally just rushes straight at the offensive tackle. And to your point, he gets double teamed a lot. The ball comes out quickly. You know, what about playing more man-to-man coverage and forcing the quarterback to hold the ball a little bit longer? What about calling some twists and stunts that involve Bosa? Like, what they do a lot is they have Bosa on what Wilks does a lot is he has Bosa and Hargrave on the same side of the line. Man, the line is going to slide that way because those are your 2 top pass rushers. You're going to get Bosa's going to get double teamed. Like, how about splitting them up and putting Armstead next to him? Like, there are things you could do. And you don't even have to invent them. You can just go back and look at the film and see what DAmico did and what Robert Saleh did and just copy their pressure packages because whatever Wilks has done with Bosa so far, ain't it? And he can say, like, look, I didn't have him this offseason. I couldn't install. I couldn't work. Poor excuse. Look at what DAmico did. He's been here. They've been doing this. It reflects poorly on the defensive coordinator because, as you pointed out, all of Bosa's other numbers are pristine. His PFF grade is pristine. Nah, man, Wilks needs to be looking at in the mirror at night being like, what can I do?
Yeah, well, I got to say, I really just haven't watched the D-line that close and gone back and watched it. You might be onto something there with the twists and the stunts. I mean, when the 49ers were the most lethal that we can remember over the last decade or so, remember Alden and Justin Smith? Talk about a tandem. And they weren't just, okay, let's just good after the quarterback. The twists, the stunts, they were all over the place. You didn't know where the pass rush was coming from. Nope. One would eat up a double.
They didn't have to rush 5.
No, not at all.
This team shouldn't have to rush 5, but it's a very basic rush, like 90% of the time. with very soft zone coverage behind it. It's like, well, what do you expect, man? What do you expect? You got to help your pass rush, not hurt it. But they're giving up like 14 points a game. So,
yeah, I mean, which is fantastic. I will say this. The 49ers defense traditionally does start out quote unquote slow. Last year, they had trouble forcing a lot of turnovers. And then the second half of the season, they started lighting up the turnovers. The year before, I don't know if you remember the year before, Grant, but every game they were giving up like 130 rushing yards a game. It was atrocious. Then they got like the final 9 games, they gave up one 100-yard rushing game. It's like they turned it on as the season went. This defense might do the exact same thing. They might be gearing up to get better, which you could understand. I talked about Philly starting slow. Let's not forget that Wilks is new to this team. Bosa wasn't there really up until week 1. I could see a potential where this defense actually does get better as the season goes. But you're right about that. It's not going to just get better because it gets better. You're going to have to adjust, and maybe that is the adjustment. One thing we do see with Bosa that has remained from last year is that they do move him side to side. That you catch very obviously throughout the game. He can choose whenever he's on the left or the right. That's up to him. But that doesn't mean that you can't. It's not like they're just switching him at the last second and you can't double team him. You can still chip him with the tight end. You can still double team him. You can do all the things that you need to do. They do need to get more creative with that. And getting more creative doesn't mean sending your best coverage linebacker at the quarterback repeatedly.
I mean, again, just look at what DAmico did. When this dude put up 18 and a half sacks last year on DAmico. Do what DAmico did. A lot of times on third down, DAmico would have 3 guys on one side, 1 guy to the other side. And a lot of times he'd have Bosa on the 3-man side. Like with Wilks, he's always on the 1-man side, on his own, one-on-one, getting double teamed. Like, great, man. Like, why don't you run some games with him and Hargrave and Armstead? Imagine what you could do. The Niners been running games and stunts for a decade. Go back and look what Fangio did with the Smith brothers. Go back and look at Saleh and DAmico too. Like, I don't want to hear any excuses that you didn't have Bosa this offseason. It's all there. Bosa's done it before. I want to see a little more creativity out of the 4-man rush. Just don't send 4 guys straight up the field every time. See, Saleh and DAmico had very creative pressures.
Who is the corner or secondary player? And maybe it's Huff. Not that you want to send him a ton either, but the 49ers in the nickel position the last few years have always had a good nickel corner blitzer. K'Wan Williams was fantastic at it. Yep, Jimmy Ward was very, very good. Yeah, exactly. Jimmy Ward was very good at it as well. Who's that guy this year? Who's the really good blitzer out of that nickel corner position? Does that guy exist? And if he doesn't, how does that create problems?
Yeah, man. Like, who is Steve Wilks' secret weapon? Like, who does he? Is it Fred Warner? It's not Greenlaw. It's not Hufanga. Like, who is his? I mean, it's none of the corners. He's got to figure out what he can do. I feel like he's just sitting back and saying, all right, man, I got a great 4-man pass rush. I'm going to play conservative, 2 deep zone coverage and win with offense. Like, man, come on. Like, you could be a little more aggressive than that. You could be a little more creative than that. Saleh was. DAmico was. They weren't reckless.
He's going to have to be, because one thing that the 49ers have gotten comfortable with, and they talked about it during the telecast this last week, that they hadn't given up any passes beyond 20 yards, and then they gave up like 3 this last week or whatever it was, 2 or 3. They haven't played an elite. They have not played an elite receiver yet.
No,
they haven't played an elite. And when they do, those yards will come. Do you think AJ Brown isn't going to go for 30, 40, 50 yards a clip against you playing this coverage? He sure the hell will. DK Metcalf, Lockett, those guys can't get behind this secondary. They absolutely can. You're going to have to find a way to get creative with the pressure and not play this soft zone. It's not going to work all year long. So I agree. I think there's some improvements that can come. I think those improvements will come. I liked Wilks a lot. I really liked that hire. I was a big fan of it. I think that he'll figure it out, but hopefully sooner than later. Yes, I agree.
You thought I was going to say Nick Bosa needs to step it up.
Yes, I did. I was. Did you see the numbers? I had the numbers ready. I had the whole thing.
Because you like me and you don't want to like disagree with me or like to just come down hard on me. So you were like, look, man, I'm really going to lay it out to you. I'm going to make this real easy for you, Grant. This is, you can't, come on. Like, and I was like, no, man, I'm right there with you. Like he definitely doesn't need to pick it. It's not on Bosa, man. He's not getting any help. You got to help him out, man. It's not just, hey, Nick, go out there and be a hero. No, he's getting all the attention. He's getting all the double teams, man. Like, switch it up. Show us your creativity because I know it's there. And I think maybe maybe Kyle's telling him to do this, but I feel like he's thinking, man, I got this great offense. I'm just going to not mess it up over here. It's like, okay, but that kind of a mindset could really screw you this week against a good team.
Grant, I watched the film on you. I saw your tweet about Bosa earlier. I thought for sure that was the route you were going to take. Maybe, much like the Cowboys with Trey Lance, I should have asked Jose to come into my corner and maybe he could have given me the read on you. That was the problem.
Head fake. Yeah. See, I was going to just save that for my stream tomorrow, but I wanted to tease it a little bit. And I'm not going to tweet about it. But that's what I'm thinking. I watched I just was like, I'm thinking like, what is the issue? If it's not Bosa, like, yeah, he's getting double teamed. Like, obviously, he's always gotten double teamed. I mean, that's not new. It seems to me I can't remember a pressure that Steve Wilks drew up and called this year that I thought was super creative. And I remember being impressed by DAmico and Salah's pressures all the time. Fun to watch, fun to see. Like, Salah used to do something that was really, he used to talk to me about it. He was so thrilled that he thought of it. His last year in in 2019, I think Buckner had only like 6 or 7 sacks. And that's because Salah was sort of using him as a decoy. He'd put him in the A gap, knowing that the center would have to slide that way because it's freaking DeForest Buckner. And then you would bring K1 off the other side. Like, you have 2 rushers over there, and you could get a third guy, and you could get 3 versus 2s all the time. Like, that was Salah's bread and butter. He was so good at it. DAmico had his own things too. Like, why can't Wilks do something like that? Put Javon Hargrave in the A gap. You know where the slide's going to go, and then have Armstead and Bosa 2-on-2 over there, and then bring you could bring a nickel off the edge as well. So many things he could be doing, and I feel like he's just kind of playing it safe right now.
Yeah, again, I really believe that blitzing off the edge is an art. There's a timing to it. There's so much that goes into it. And when you see somebody who can do it well, you're like, that's it. That's it. Like, I can't really put it into perspective, but when I see it, I can show it to you. And that's what the 49ers have had. I don't know that guy exists on the team. Maybe he does. I actually think Huff is a very good blitzer off the edge, but his timing is impeccable. But when he's near the line of scrimmage, you usually know he's going to blitz. So you can't fool anybody with that as much as you could with your natural nickel corner being the blitzer, the way that K1 would. I mean, he would come up to the line. He looked like he was in coverage, and then boom, as soon as the ball was hiked, he was in, and he was there so quick. He was so good at that. And so was Ward. I don't know if that guy's on this roster.
When I was in middle school and high school, and I used to play Madden all night before I had like a life, you could say, hanging out with my friends Shane and Aaron and Devin. Shout out to Shane and Aaron and Devin. I didn't know that much about football, and I'd be calling plays, trying to win games, losing a lot of games. I love calling nickel blitzes, man. I felt like I'm calling that every time. I don't care. Nickel blitz, let's go, because that guy's not getting blocked. And if you hold the ball a little too long, I got you. I'm not saying I was very effective with it, but I liked it. Just wanted to say that. Brother Bob, I'm with you too. Yeah.